Some places in America are so desperate for new residents they're handing out cash and tax breaks, but 5 states are bleeding people faster than a sinking ship, and the reason isn't what the headlines are telling you. Nobody's talking about the real economic forces pulling the trigger. Until now. Before we dive in, hit subscribe, because every week we break down the global economic stories you're not supposed to ignore. Let's get into it. On the surface, this might look like people chasing warmer weather or cheaper rent, but dig deeper and you'll see this is part of a massive economic realignment, one where state policies, tax systems, job markets, and demographic collapse are forcing millions of Americans to vote with their feet. What you're about to hear isn't about personal preference anymore. It's about economic survival. Today, we're breaking down the 5 U.S. states experiencing the most dramatic population exodus, where tens of thousands are packing up every single year, and why the economic data reveals a pattern that should concern every American. And trust me, number 1 will make you question everything you thought you knew about the American dream. Why is this happening now? Simple. Housing costs spiraling out of control, tax burdens crushing the middle class, job markets stagnating, crime rates rising, and natural disasters making entire regions uninsurable. These aren't just people leaving for better weather. These are economic refugees fleeing states where the cost of living has completely decoupled from wages and opportunity. Wages haven't kept pace with costs. Housing has become a speculative asset instead of a basic need. State governments are asking citizens to pay more for less, and millions of Americans are realizing they don't have to stay and suffer. Welcome to the great American reshuffling of 2025. Number 5, Hawaii. Paradise is literally too expensive to exist in, even if you're making 6 figures. Hawaii lost 0.3% of its population in 2023, making it one of only 8 states to lose residents. But here's the kicker. 75% of middle-income households, people earning over $100,000, say they'll be forced to leave within 5 years because they simply can't afford to stay. Let that sink in. You can make a 6-figure salary in Hawaii and still be priced out of paradise. The numbers are staggering. Hawaii is experiencing net outbound migration with 7,400 residents leaving for Washington state alone in 2022. Housing costs are the number 1 reason people are fleeing. You now need to earn $150,000 just for financial pressure to ease. That's up from $100,000 last year. The middle-class squeeze is real. 57% of surveyed residents say they'll leave in 5 years or less, up from 46% in 2024. Hawaii saw its largest net loss to Washington state, with 3,300 more people leaving than arriving. One resident put it bluntly, "I make over $100,000 and I still can't afford to stay. If that doesn't scream broken, I don't know what does." And honestly, they're not wrong. Imagine living in literal paradise where you can surf before work, but you need a roommate at age 40 because a studio apartment costs more than a mortgage in 47 other states. Hawaii has become the place everyone dreams of visiting, but nobody can afford to live in, unless you're a trust fund kid or a tech executive working remotely. The cost of groceries alone is 50% higher than the mainland average. Gas prices are consistently the highest in the nation. And don't even get started on childcare costs. You're basically paying luxury resort prices to live in what should be your home. The aloha spirit is real, but economic reality is hitting harder. Picture this. You're watching the sunset over Waikiki Beach, palm trees swaying, ocean breeze on your face, knowing that in 2 years you'll be watching sunsets from a suburban cul-de-sac in Nevada because your landlord just raised rent by 15% again. Paradise lost, 1 lease renewal at a time. The dream of island living collides with the nightmare of island economics. You're working 2 jobs to afford what used to require 1. Your savings account is a myth. And every time you see a moving truck, you wonder when it'll be your turn. The state government knows this is a crisis, but solutions require building more housing, and that's politically complicated in a place where land is sacred and development is controversial. Meanwhile, local families who've lived there for generations are being pushed out by wealthy mainland transplants and foreign investors buying vacation properties. It's economic displacement in paradise, and it's accelerating. Would you sacrifice paradise for affordability? Drop a yes or no below. Number 4, Illinois. Illinois ranks third in the nation for people fleeing, and taxes are enemy number 1. Illinois lost 32,126 residents in 2023, continuing a decade-long hemorrhage of taxpayers. The state ranks third nationally for outbound migration in 2024, and it's not slowing down. The exodus is so severe that Illinois has lost residents for 10 consecutive years. That's a full decade of people saying enough is enough and heading for the exits. Here's the breakdown. Illinois lost 32,126 residents in 2023, a decline of 0.26%, with 83,839 moving out domestically. The tax burden is crushing. Illinois ranks third in combined income and sales tax burden and seventh in combined state and local taxes. It also has the third highest unemployment rate in the nation and the second highest property taxes in America. High earners are fleeing, and though they represent only 6% of tax filers, they contribute 40% of personal income tax revenue. When they leave, the state's budget crisis deepens. A recent survey found that 61% of Illinoisans have thought about moving out of state, with taxes cited as the number one reason. A Chicago area resident joked, "I pay more in property taxes than my cousin pays for his entire mortgage in Tennessee." At some point, you stop calling it living and start calling it Stockholm Syndrome. And that sentiment is echoed across the state. People aren't just complaining. They're loading up U-Hauls and driving south or west, looking for states where their paycheck actually stretches. Illinois is like that friend who keeps asking to borrow money but never pays you back, except this friend legally requires you to keep giving them more every year. You love Chicago deep dish pizza and Lake Michigan summers, but you're basically paying luxury prices for a state government that operates like a failing startup with unlimited credit cards. The pension crisis is real, the debt is mounting, and taxpayers are footing the bill for decades of political mismanagement. The political gridlock doesn't help. Every election cycle promises reform, but structural problems remain. The state constitution protects pension benefits, meaning cuts are nearly impossible. So taxes keep rising, and the middle class keeps shrinking. Young professionals are choosing to start their careers elsewhere. Retirees are cashing out and moving to states with no income tax, and businesses are relocating to more tax-friendly environments. Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table in suburban Illinois, calculator in hand, adding up property taxes, state income taxes, sales taxes, and realizing you could move 200 miles south to Indiana or 500 miles south to Tennessee and save enough annually to take a European vacation every year. The math isn't mathing, and your U-Haul reservation is booked. You love your neighborhood, your friends, your local hangouts, but you can't ignore the financial bleeding anymore. Illinois broke your heart by breaking your budget. Illinois sends. Are taxes really the main reason? Let me know below. Number 3, California. The Golden State lost 239,575 residents in 2024, the largest outmigration of any state in America. California has experienced population decline for multiple consecutive years, losing 75,423 residents in 2023 alone. Over 4 million people have left California for other states since 2000. Read that again. 4 million people have said goodbye to the California dream in just over 2 decades. The median home price is more than double the national median, and only a quarter of California households can afford to buy a house. The 2024 exodus saw 239,575 net residents lost, the highest in America. The housing crisis is at the center of it all. The median asking price for a home is $797,470, and only 25% of households can afford it. The housing shortage cost California between $143 billion and $233 billion annually in lost economic activity. California has the highest state income tax rate at 12.3% plus steep sales and gas taxes. Job growth is below the national average, contributing to economic concerns. The state needs 350,000 new housing units annually, but only built 100,000 in 2024. Texas alone receives 102,000 Californians every year, making it the top destination for California expats. One tech worker tweeted, "I left Silicon Valley for Austin. Same job, remote work, traded a 900 square foot apartment for a 2,500 square foot house. California is beautiful, but being broke isn't. And that's the story thousands are telling. Remote work unlocked geographic freedom, and people realized they didn't have to sacrifice financial stability for California sunshine. California sells you the dream of beaches, tech innovation, and endless sunshine, then charges you $4,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment with street parking and a neighbor who plays bongos at 2 a.m. It's the only place where making $150,000 a year qualifies you for struggling middle class. You're basically paying Lamborghini prices for Honda Civic living. Want to buy a starter home? Good luck competing with cash offers from investors and foreign buyers. The regulatory environment makes building new housing painfully slow. Environmental reviews, zoning restrictions, NIMBY opposition, and local politics create a system where housing supply can't keep up with demand. Meanwhile, homelessness is visible on nearly every street corner in major cities. The contrast between extreme wealth and extreme poverty is jarring, and the middle class is disappearing, squeezed between rising costs and stagnant wages. Picture this. You're driving down the Pacific Coast Highway, windows down, ocean breeze in your hair, Instagram-perfect sunset ahead, and then you remember your landlord just texted that your rent is going up another $400 next month, and you haven't been able to save for a down payment in 6 years despite working 50-hour weeks. The dream dies in traffic on the 405. You're spending 2 hours a day commuting, paying $6 for gas, and wondering why you're working so hard to barely survive in a state that used to symbolize opportunity. Californians or former Californians, did you leave or are you thinking about it? Comment below. Number 2. New York. New York lost 102,000 people in 2023, the steepest numeric drop in America. New York State experienced a population decline of 0.52% in 2023, losing an estimated 102,000 residents, the largest absolute loss in the nation. New York has seen 10 consecutive years of population decline, with 446,814 net domestic migration loss from 2020 to 2024. That's nearly 500,000 people choosing to leave the Empire State in just 4 years. The numbers tell a brutal story. New York lost 102,000 residents in 2023, the largest numeric drop nationally. Over the decade from 2020 to 2024, the state experienced 446,114 net domestic migration loss. The housing crisis is severe, with very few affordable homes available and multifamily building permits declining significantly. The housing crisis will cost the New York metro area nearly $1 trillion in lost economic activity over the next 10 years. The cost of living is among the highest in the nation, particularly in New York City. The business environment, characterized by high taxes and heavy regulations, is pushing both employers and employees out of the state. A Brooklyn resident said, "I love New York, but I'm tired of spending half my income on a shoebox apartment and the other half on taxes. I'm not leaving the dream. The dream left me." And that's the heartbreak of it all. People aren't rejecting New York's culture or energy. They're being priced out of participating in it. You can't enjoy Broadway shows when you're working 3 gigs to afford rent. You can't appreciate world-class museums when your grocery budget is maxed out. New York is the friend who peaked in high school and keeps reminding everyone about their glory days. Sure, it's got Broadway, world-class museums, and pizza that ruins all other pizza for you. But you're paying $3,500 for 400 square feet and calling it a cozy one-bedroom when it's literally a hallway with a hot plate. The subway smells like regret, your grocery bill looks like a car payment, and you need 3 roommates to afford what people in Tennessee call starter homes. The pandemic accelerated the exodus. Remote work proved that many high-paying jobs don't require living in Manhattan. People realized they could keep their New York salary while enjoying a much lower cost of living elsewhere. Florida and North Carolina became top destinations for New York transplants seeking warmth, lower taxes, and affordable housing. Even upstate New York is losing people as the entire state grapples with the same affordability crisis. Picture this. You're walking through Times Square at midnight, city lights blazing, energy pulsing, feeling like the main character in your own movie. Then you remember you're 2 rent checks away from moving back in with your parents in Ohio. Your dream job pays $65K in a city where that's poverty wages, and the cockroach in your apartment has started paying partial rent because it's been there longer than you. The magic fades when you're choosing between heat and groceries. New Yorkers, is it the cost, the lifestyle, or something else? Drop your thoughts. Number 1. Louisiana. Louisiana leads the nation in outbound migration percentage for the second year running, and it's not even close. Louisiana experienced a net loss of 29,692 residents in 2024 due to domestic outmigration, ranking 7th worst nationally. The state has lost over 110,000 residents since 2020. Louisiana topped multiple moving company surveys as the #1 state for outbound moves, and the reasons go far beyond weather and hurricanes. This is about systemic economic failure that's forcing people who love their home to abandon it. Louisiana's outmigration rate is #1 in the nation for the second consecutive year. The population loss includes 29,692 net domestic migration loss in 2024, with 110,709 residents lost since 2020. The employment crisis is staggering. 4,801 fewer employed residents and lack of jobs is the #1 reason for leaving. Residents are fleeing primarily to Texas, especially San Antonio. High crime rates are cited as a primary concern, along with serious concerns over education system quality. Hurricanes and insurance cost increases are driving the exodus. The state lacks economic diversification beyond traditional industries like oil, gas, and tourism, limiting opportunities for young professionals and families. One Louisiana native said, "I love this state's culture, the food, the music, but I can't raise my kids here when there are no jobs, schools are struggling, and every hurricane season we're one storm away from catastrophe." That's the painful reality. Louisiana has everything that makes a place feel like home: rich culture, incredible food, warm hospitality, but it's missing the economic foundation that allows people to build futures there. Louisiana is like loving a partner who refuses to change. You've got incredible food, unmatched culture, Mardi Gras, jazz, and hospitality that makes you feel like family. But the state keeps asking you to ignore the lack of job opportunities, crumbling infrastructure, insurance costs that rival your mortgage, and hurricane anxiety every summer. It's the only place where people sincerely love home, but literally can't afford to stay, both financially and emotionally. The insurance crisis is particularly devastating. After repeated hurricanes, major insurers have pulled out of Louisiana entirely. Homeowners face skyrocketing premiums or can't get coverage at all. Without insurance, you can't get a mortgage. Without a mortgage, homeownership becomes impossible for most families. It's a vicious cycle that's hollowing out communities. The education system struggles with funding, teacher retention, and outcomes. Parents see their children falling behind national standards and worry about future opportunities. Young professionals look at the job market and see limited options outside of traditional industries. The state's economic diversification efforts haven't produced the transformation needed to compete with growing Sunbelt states. Picture this. You're sitting on your porch in Louisiana, warm evening breeze carrying the smell of jambalaya from your neighbor's kitchen, live music drifting from a nearby bar, feeling that deep cultural soul that only Louisiana has, and then you check your bank account, realize your job prospects haven't improved in 5 years, your homeowner's insurance just tripled because of hurricane risk, and your kid's school just announced another round of teacher layoffs. Culture can't pay bills, and love can't fix systematic economic decline. You're torn between the place that shaped you and the future you need to build. Louisiana residents or former residents was leaving the hardest decision you ever made. Tell me your story. If you're still here, you're now smarter than 99% of people Googling cheap places to live. We just covered 5 states where hundreds of thousands are fleeing every year, and the economic forces behind it are only accelerating. Let's wrap this up with the bigger picture. Whether a state is losing 100,000 people or 30,000, whether it's taxes, housing, jobs, or hurricanes, every one of these states is experiencing the same fundamental crisis. The economic deal that kept Americans in place for generations has broken. Wages haven't kept pace with costs. Housing has become a speculative asset instead of a basic need. State governments are asking citizens to pay more for less, and millions of Americans are realizing they don't have to stay and suffer. They can move. This isn't just about 5 states. This is about the future of American mobility, economic freedom, and what happens when policy failures force people to vote with their feet. These states represent different flavors of the same problem: broken promises. California promised opportunity but delivered unaffordable housing. New York promised culture but demanded financial sacrifice. Illinois promised Midwest stability but buried residents in taxes. Hawaii promised paradise but priced out families. Louisiana promised community but couldn't deliver economic security. The great reshuffling of America is happening right now, and it's revealing which states are adapting to 21st century economic realities and which are clinging to unsustainable models. Geography is no longer destiny when remote work and interstate mobility offer escape routes. If you found this eye-opening, hit subscribe, because next week we're covering the states Americans are flooding into, where housing is still affordable, jobs are booming, and tax burdens are lighter. Plus, the hidden costs nobody talks about when you make the move. We're also diving into the countries offering free citizenship, the cities secretly restricting cash, and the nations quietly collapsing in slow motion. This is World Economics Explained. See you in the next one.